Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about a really big move India's making on the global financial stage, and it all revolves around its currency, the rupee. We're going to break down the strategy, the risks, and what this all means for a world pretty much run by the US dollar.
Now hold on, is the rupee going to challenge the US dollar overnight? No, not exactly. But India's central bank, the RBI, just quietly unveiled 3 new rules that could seriously change the game.
So, what's the big picture here? Well, it's all about reducing how much everyone relies on the US dollar and, at the same time, building stronger financial bridges within South Asia, with the rupee right at the center of it all. But to get how these new rules make that happen, first, we need to look at the tools that were already on the table.
Okay, before we get into the new stuff, we gotta understand the basics. To really get what the RBI just did, we need to know about 2 key players in this whole international trade game. Let's meet them.
All right, first up, you've got your Authorized Dealer banks, or AD banks. You can think of them as the official gatekeepers, the bouncers, if you will, for India's financial system. They're the only banks that the RBI gives the green light to for handling all the complicated stuff with foreign currencies and trade. And then we have this really interesting tool called the Special Rupee Vostro Account, or SRVA. Now, stay with me here. It's basically a special bank account for another country. But here's the twist. It's physically located in India, and it can only hold Indian rupees. It's a simple concept, but as you're about to see, the implications are huge. And this is where things get really fascinating. The whole situation with Russia is a perfect example of why these accounts suddenly became so important. When Western sanctions hit, using dollars to buy Russian oil got, well, complicated. So what did India do? It started buying a lot more oil from Russia, paying for it directly in rupees that went into these SRVAs. But this created a new problem. Russia ended up with a massive pile of rupees and not a lot of places to spend it. And you know, this isn't just a one-off thing with Russia. We're talking about over 150 of these special accounts already opened for different countries. That tells you there's a real growing interest in trading with India using its own currency. And that's exactly what the RBI is now trying to pour fuel on. Okay, so let's recap. We have the tools, these SRVAs, and we have a very clear problem. Countries are building up these mountains of rupees with nowhere to put them. This sets the stage perfectly for the RBI's 3 big new rules, which are designed to fix that exact issue. So, what are these rules? First, 80 banks can now give out loans in rupees to our neighbors, Bhutan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. Second, the RBI is going to start publishing official daily exchange rates for the rupee against other South Asian currencies. That adds a ton of transparency. But honestly, it's the third rule that's the real game changer. It's the one that directly tackles that Russia problem. And this, right here, this is the master stroke. It totally solves the what do I do with all these rupees problem. Before, countries like Russia could only really invest this money in pretty low-yield government bonds. But now they can invest in corporate bonds from some of India's biggest companies. Think Tata or Reliance. All of a sudden, holding rupees isn't a problem. It's a fantastic investment opportunity. So, making the rupee a bigger deal on the world stage, that sounds pretty good, right? Well, yeah, but it's a high-stakes move. Let's really dig into the potential upside versus the very real risks involved. You know, it's a classic risk-reward situation. On the one hand, the benefits are huge. We're talking cheaper, faster trade for Indian businesses, less hassle with currency conversions. But the downside is just as real. What happens if an Indian bank gives a loan to a company in another country and they can't pay it back? How do you get that money? And that's not even getting into the potential political blowback from the US for creating a workaround to the dollar. So you see, this isn't just some boring banking regulation update. Not at all. This is a massive strategic play, a key move in a much larger game for India's economic future and its place in the world. Yeah, when you pull back and look at the big picture, the brand strategy becomes crystal clear. It's all about cutting that dependency on the US dollar, number 1, and number 2, jacking up the global demand for the Indian rupee. This positions India as the undeniable financial leader of South Asia. The ultimate goal, to build a regional economic club that's strong enough to handle financial shocks, no matter if they start in New York or London. So India has laid out its strategy. The pieces are on the board. These new rules are basically a bold invitation to the rest of the world, especially its neighbors, saying, hey, let's play a new game, one where the US dollar isn't the only currency on the table. The big question now is, who's ready to play?